Americans expect their president to clearly communicate policy and positions on whatever platform, right? So whether Trump intended to make this statement about his beliefs about black people or not, that is a very reasonable expectation for the American people to have, that when the president posts something, he stands by it or he agrees with it.
Anita, can we start with what happened here, what we can identify as how this unfolded, and what this video was really had in it?
So this started Thursday night, just before midnight Friday, when President Trump posted on his Truth Social account a video that furthered some unfounded conspiracy theories about the 2020 election being fraudulent. At the very end of this 1 minute or so video is this very startling image that we see that has grabbed everybody's attention, and that is of Barack and Michelle Obama quite poorly CG'd onto the bodies of monkeys. Specifically, the former president is an orangutan and the former first lady is a silverback gorilla, which also feeds into the common racist, sexist trope on the far right that Michelle Obama is actually a trans person. But of course, the image of black people being represented as monkeys is a racist trope that needs no further investigation. It's very clearly racist. So the president posted this around midnight, and it began to gain traction. Of course, it got about 1,000 likes on his Truth Social platform and several hundred retweets or reposts. And but then the controversy started, and one of the most notable people to speak out was the only black Republican in the Senate. That's Tim Scott. He's seen as a very close Trump ally, but he just came out swinging and condemned this and said, "I'm praying this is not true, but if it is, it's the most racist thing I've seen coming out of the White House." He was joined by many other Republicans, and not just Republicans, also Democrats, but also elected representatives from around the United States. I even found a city councilman in Louisville, Kentucky, who openly condemned this, along with the nation's largest grassroots civil rights organization, the NAACP, which just called it blatantly racist. So there was all this outrage, at which point the press secretary put out a statement characterizing this as fake outrage, and said, oh, this was really a clip from a send-up of The Lion King. It featured the song The Lion Sleeps Tonight. But shortly after, right about noon, the video was taken down off of the president's Truth Social. And the White House said at the time that this was posted by some anonymous low-level staffer. And they also said, they did not say whether they were going to fire this staffer. What's notable? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Anita, one of the parts of this as well is that the president has explicitly said, "No, I didn't make a mistake," despite the idea that he has kind of nudged at the issue that, as he sees it, which he gave the video to the people. Generally, they'd look at the whole thing, but I guess somebody didn't. He's trying to deflect blame, isn't he?
Sure, but a few things about that. Number one, he posted this during his peak Truth Social hours. He usually or lately has been having kind of spurts of activity around the midnight hour. And also, he said very clearly in 2024, and this may have changed, but he said that the only other person who had access to his Truth Social account was his Deputy Chief of Staff, Dan Scavino. So maybe their policy has changed and they are letting White House staffers do that. It does raise the question, though, if you're a White House staffer responsible for communicating on the president's behalf, and it's a 1 minute video, and you don't watch to the end of it, that seems everybody needs an editor. You know this, I know this, Calum. It seems like, at the very least, it's an oversight. But Trump says that the fault was not his. He watched the beginning of the video, he liked it, he wanted to share it with people.
I suppose one of the other parts of it is Trump's apparent obsession with the Obamas and his attacks on them, which I was reading go really as far back as 2011. And I suppose actually it makes sense. He was one of those who amplified the false birther conspiracy theory.
You could say that he was the driving force behind that theory. And that theory, of course, that you're referring to is that President Barack Obama was not born in the United States, when in fact he was born in Hawaii, which is part of the United States.
Yeah. And this is the thing about Trump is he does fixate on who he would perceive to be his political rivals, or indeed perhaps it's more superficial than that, Anita, that those that he can attack that may fuel more support for him, I suppose. It might not be that he has any personal animus towards these people, but actually that his supporters might, and so by Trump leaning into that, does that generate some sort of enthusiastic backing for him?
I mean, that's an interesting heuristic, Calum, and I'm loving that we're psychoanalyzing Donald Trump, but I don't know if that gets us anywhere. Here's what I will say. I went through quite painfully some of the far right news websites that reported on this story, and what I found was a sharp division between commenters who said very, very clearly, this was wrong, this was racist, this was bad. I'm quoting the commenters. And then commenters who said things that I will not repeat here, things that were just openly racist, in which they applauded this representation of the Obamas as apes, which, as I said, is the oldest trope about Black people in the book.
Yeah. I guess the other thing I wanted to ask you about, Anita, is this idea that Trump has been posting sort of late at night, that he, is interesting. Until this, I felt maybe he'd been quite quiet for a couple of days. I felt like I hadn't talked about him in a couple of days, but perhaps that's just because we're consumed by other political drama in the UK at the moment. I'm just quite fascinated by the analysis of Trump's behaviour latterly and recently, and whether there is a kind of growing concern about how he is operating more so than ever before.
We are definitely hearing that from his critics, especially on the Democratic side of the aisle. But I think today is the day that we've heard most forcefully from his critics in the Republican bucket that something may not be 100%. Definitely, I mean, a lot of Republicans are unhappy with this. Does that translate to them saying this indicates that there might be something more at play with the president's psyche? I'm not quite seeing that yet, but that's definitely a discussion. What is important is that's a discussion that Americans are having. And I kind of want to just go back to the president posting this in the first place. Americans expect their president to clearly communicate policy and positions on whatever platform, right? So whether Trump intended to make this statement about his beliefs about Black people or not, that is a very reasonable expectation for the American people to have, that when the president posts something, he stands by it or he agrees with it. So whether Trump intended to manufacture this outrage or not, I mean, I think it's clear that he didn't want to manufacture outrage, but whether he wanted to stir this up or not, the fact of the matter is Americans saw this as something that the president very strongly believes. I think this is showing a lot of division in America. As I said, there are supporters of the president who echo these frankly racist views. But there are also people who consider themselves supporters politically or ideologically or whatever, who are condemning it. But it's really important that Trump has not apologized for this. And I mean, this is Black History Month. Every February, the United States has an affinity month for something or other. In February, the shortest month of the year is Black History Month, which acknowledges the many contributions that Black Americans have made to our society, especially in the wake of the painful, deadly transatlantic slave trade that brought so many Black Americans to this country. And so for this to be going out the first week of Black History Month is especially notable for a lot of observers. And it's interesting that the president is saying, I didn't make a mistake, and indicating that he doesn't intend to apologize about it. Though when he was asked on Air Force One earlier tonight, he did seem to kind of touch at saying, well, if people thought it was racist, it was wrong. Let me just see if I can find exactly the words he used, because it is kind of interesting. He said, hold on, I'm so sorry, I'm just scrolling for this. He said, when he was asked directly, when Trump was asked on Air Force One on Friday night if he condemns the racist parts of the video, he said, and this is quoted, "Of course I do." But that's the closest we've come to the president saying, this was not, or this is, I guess, the closest we've come to the president uttering an apology about this. It's also important to note that the Obamas have not publicly said anything about this video.
Anita, thank you so much. Really good to speak to you.
My pleasure.